Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Well, good morning, folks. It is quite chilly today. I think the real feel is -6 right now. The actual temp is 11 degrees. It is just after morning milking here, and we are getting after feeding and scraping. Actually, Dad just finished feeding the cows for the second time today. We are getting ready to start scraping barnyards. As you may be able to tell, it's frozen. So we're gonna bring it out here in the barnyard with the scrape tractor and pile it, and Dad will end up taking the skid steer and loading the spreader and hauling it out of here. So I don't know how much of this I've ever filmed. You're kind of busy doing it, so I probably didn't film much of it because, well, you're kind of running like a monkey with your head cut off. But what we normally do is so this is our feeding barn here. Bunk for the low group there, bunk for the high group is there. So this is the feeding barn, that's the freestall barn, and this is the barnyard, I guess. And we usually scrape all this manure over here to the lagoon, and there is a ramp, a concrete ramp, that we push it down right here. And as you can see, well, she's got some frozen manure on her because, well, it has been cold for a few days here, and so, well, that tends to happen. It builds up. We use a little wash line there. I guess I shouldn't say little, it's 4-inch PVC, and that is all water. Comes out of the milking parlor here, whether it be the gutters where you're hosing down or the water from washing the tank. It goes into a holding tank over there on the other side of this hill, and there's a pump in there, and we use all that water to flush down the manure that we scrape over here. That way, well, you can kind of have multi-purpose for that water. You know, you clean the parlor with it, and you can also wash the ramp down. But you can see everything here is good and solidly frozen. So I'm gonna get going here because I hear Dad coming with the skid loader. So I'm gonna finish getting my gates opened up here, and hard to do one-handed. And then we're gonna get after the scraping here. This is a tricky area in here. It's pretty tight. So when you go around here, you gotta follow this bump real close. If you don't, you end up running your front end over there. It's difficult because there's so much frozen manure in here. I can't get traction. My front end just slides around. So it's a little dicey when you got a bunch of frozen manure how to get in and out of here. Come on. Come on. You gotta go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Now what we usually do is we scrape the feeding barn first, get all the cows out, move them over into the feeding barn, out of the freestall barn, and then Dad rakes stalls, and while he's raking stalls I start scraping again. We clean out the freestalls next, and everything in there is pretty well froze today too, so we're gonna pile it all out here and load it and haul it to the field and spread it, because it isn't gonna go down the ramp, I'll tell you that much. So get back to backing around corners and moving to and all sorts of good stuff. So I'll throw you guys up on time lapse and you can enjoy the show. Well, barnyard's as clean as I'm probably gonna get it for now. It's still pretty cold. A lot of that's frozen pretty hard. Clean the box scraper off. Just got done cleaning off Dad's bucket on a skid steer. When it's this cold, it doesn't take real long for things to freeze into darn near concrete, you know, around here. So got everything all cleaned off. The only thing he's got to do is run that spreader out, spread that load, and clean the spreader off. I'm gonna kick off these boat anchors and go on to grind and feed. That way we've got feed to finish out the remainder of the weekend here. But in the meantime, I'm gonna kick these boots off and go grind feed. So we'll see you in a minute. Well, I probably haven't made mention of it before. I know I've talked about how in the winter time we plug things in around here as needed. That way things will start up. Everything has a block here on it pretty well. This one's got one of them circulatory type pumps on it. And one of the things Dad did years ago is he started making all these plugs around here. So this is a switched plug. That way you can see it has an off position. He just wrote that on there, but it's stamped on there too. You just barely can see it. But you got a little orange light there you might be able to see. Lets you know you have power to the plug, at least to this point here. And you can flip that off and that'll kill power to the actual plug here. So you can unplug these things. Hard to do one-handed, but so you can unplug them and keep from having that continual arcing every single time you plug and unplug something. You know, your block heaters, they're kind of not real convenient to replace, not real convenient to find parts for some of them depending on what it is. So it's nice to have a way to be able to kill the power to them so that when you want to hook things up, you don't have to worry about arcing things out and potentially prematurely making your block heater, you know, fail, whether it be the pigtail for the cord here burns up or the element itself has a short and burns up because of the repeated sparking of plugging and unplugging it. So that's kind of a nice little feature Dad did years ago. Pretty well everything we have around here now has these. There's one for this tractor. This is our feed grinder tractor. So this girl gets used 3 times a week, at least for our current rate of consumption. That seems to keep up no problem. And then obviously all that manure handling we just did, the scrape tractor has a plug on it. The skid steer Dad was using has a cord with a plug for it, and same with that tractor and manure spreader has one for that. So that way everything in the morning when he's done feeding or while he's feeding, depending on the weather we have and the time frame we have to work with, he'll go around and he'll selectively turn on whichever one we need. And so that way, like today, well, the scrape tractor, it doesn't have it's on a timer, so it turns on every day at a certain time because that's pretty well a routine. You know, we scrape twice a day here, morning and afternoon, and so that's kind of it always follows the same routine. So we leave that one on a timer, but something like the skid steer, the feed grinder tractor, the manure spreader, that's something that sometimes, well, most of the time it's not going to be a routine planned thing. You know, you're going to spread manure when you have the weather to do so. So that could be any random day depending on the time of year. And so that obviously we don't have on a timer. This tractor is not on a timer because sometimes, like today, we got frozen manure. This job gets pushed back later into the morning here because we have all that frozen manure to deal with. So I'm going to get this girl fired up here, start letting her warm up, because I'm sure, as cold as it is, I won't have any steering. It takes a little while for this oil in here to warm up and circulate all the way up, because again, the last thing you get oil to is your steering on these girls. So we'll get her fired up and let her warm up, and then we'll go put this batch of feed in. dumping. We're gonna sit here and watch it. Can't walk away from this thing. See, what happens is that top of that auger on the very end, you can't see from here, but it has a flap on it. And what happens is if that auger, the feed in the bin backs up to that, that's a safety measure. That'll open and the grain will get pushed out the top of the auger instead of breaking your bearing and your drive and all that fun stuff. It just pushes it out rather than distorting the shaft and breaking things. But anyways, this bin is probably going to get full on me. I'm going to imagine about halfway through this batch of feeding. And I've done this enough that I can tell just by the sound of that auger back there, I can tell when it starts getting a load on it. And I can pretty well be right on the money and hit that button and shut that thing off before that happens. So we're going to sit here and watch it. That way nothing funny happens. But I suppose a couple of you people that have watched along the ways here may have seen this conveyor looking thing here. And you may wonder what in the world that thing is and why it's sitting out here. Maybe you don't, I don't know. But that is what we call the ag bag conveyor. So that is a Demuth conveyor that we have a similar one inside the barn that the feed comes out of our mixer and goes into that and goes up. We call it the elevation conveyor because it takes the feed uphill to the feeders. But we kind of retrofitted one of them in place out here for our ag bags. So before we used to have a kind of sort of mobile conveyor. It was made out of the same style conveyor, but we had to kind of open up. So these conveyors, you see, have shields on them, and at least we put them on there to keep any riffraff from happening, or an animal getting in there and making a mess, or largely so we don't have a bunch of snow and ice in there. But we used to have to take a section out of the silo conveyor to be able to put this conveyor into that one. So you had to run two conveyors just to bring feed in, because we got our ag bags out here in this ag bag lot, we call it. And we decided that wasn't real handy, because depending on if you're filling silo or whatnot, that conveyor was in your way. So the one day as I was sitting here putting feed in, I was kind of studying the situation out here, and I went and told Dad, I said, I think we may be able to squeeze that in out there. So between the two of us kind of looking about it, kind of figuring out what we were going to do, we decided, well, we're going to give it a shot. And so we took that thing off of the carriage we had built for it, so it was mobile, set it on the ground out here, cut a hole in the side of the barn, and ran around the side of the barn there. We made a hopper previously out of some poly to dump the skid steer into there. Now, you can't just go hog wild and dump a whole scoop in there, because again, it's a Demuth conveyor. It's not really meant for that kind of situation. So we built this cage later on, after a couple issues with some employees for getting the skid steer over the ag bag conveyor, and the skid steer would settle down and broke that hopper a couple times, and we got tired of fixing it. So, and also for a safety measure, Dad built that cage there around it. That's just some wheel casing pipe from the wells out here. And so now it's got a cage over it, so it's actually nice because you can pull up the skid steer and kind of set the bucket right against that, and not have to worry about it falling on somebody if they get out of the skid steer or something like that. But that's what that thing is. It's an ag bag conveyor is what we call it. Kind of interesting. It works. So, if you wondered, maybe I'm just rambling. I don't know. Now, it might be hard to see. But we'll show you on the camera there. You can look up there, you can see that door that's open. You can see some grain sticking up. When I hit this remote, lift that thing up, you'll see that door close. Because I guess it must be cold, but you could kind of maybe see on camera there what I was talking about how that was going to eventually get full back up to the auger, and I could hear when my ears, because I don't have any earplugs in, I could tell when that hydraulic motor down there on this thing changed pitches, that meant that there was pressure building, things were backing up. I shut her off. Now we're going to shut the door, we raise the auger up, and we're gonna empty the auger out, pull her down, fold her up, and depending on what's left back in this feed grinder here, which I don't know how to go check the scales and do some math. We may grind a half batch for next week, or if there's not enough in it, we might grind a full one. We'll see what happens. I'm going to make a slight adjustment to my position here. There's about 1,500 pounds left in here. This is a grinder that holds right about 8,000 pounds. Depending on the material you push in, obviously. Some stuff's fluffy. It isn't gonna hold that much if it's something light and fluffy, but my mix I run between my shelled corn, my energy mix, my base mix for my dairy, my soybean meal. The consistency I have, the fluffiness of my feed, 8,000 pounds seems to be about what you can put in here. So, I'm gonna mix 6,000 pounds. That'll make it 7,500, that leaves me 500 pound rough left open, not making a mess. Well, feed is ground, tractor's put away, turning that fan on that bin there is gone out of. Good to run some good cold air on it every now and then. Today's a pretty cold day, so we'll run some cold air on there. That way don't have any hot spots or anything like that forming in that bin. Shouldn't. It was old corn that was dried, but just in case, we'll run some air on it for a little bit here this afternoon. I'll kill it this evening when I come home for the day, but I don't know. I suppose I've probably done enough jibber jabbering nonsense BSing to put a video together here, I suppose. It's been kind of a busy week, I guess. Haven't filmed much, just been kind of chasing my tail. Hauled a bunch of manure earlier this week. This is the first week of February here. Well, the week that was the end of January, starting into February. Now today is the 4th of February, but cleaned out the north barn and the storage, cleaned out the west barn. I think earlier in the week, yeah, Dad earlier in the week cleaned out the old barn bank pen here. That's what we call it anyways. It's underneath the barn there by the barn bank. We call it the old barn bank pen. But yeah, cleaned that all out. So we pretty much been handling manure all week. Between cleaning out barns and dealing with frozen manure, because it's been, well, teens, 20s. Today is single digits. Well, overnight was single digits. I guess it's now double digits now. It's a whole whopping 12 degrees outside, if you want to believe the truck. I don't have my coveralls on today. It's hard to have coveralls on and your slip over boots. They just conflict with one another. As much as up and down you're doing on a scrape tractor, it's just annoying. You're going to end up biffing it, so I don't even bother wearing them when I scrape. So my legs are completely numb. When I go in the house, I'll probably feel like I get warm, and then about 15 minutes after that, I'm going to realize just how cold I was, and then I'm going to be cold again for a while. And then probably a couple hours after that, but we're not going to be in the house that long, but I'm saying a couple hours after that, if we keep moving, we might start to feel warm again. Who knows? But I guess I'm probably going to, I don't know, end this video here. Not much exciting going on for the rest of the day. Afternoon chores and whatever else we get into. This is Saturday. I guess we're not going to get into a whole heck of a lot for the rest of the day. Just barn chores and what's necessary for the day. It's a cold day. Do what's necessary, and then we're probably going to call it a day. So I guess I'm probably going to end this video here. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. As always, God bless, and we will see you on the next one.